what's up, everyone? This is Ryan and Connor with Voices from Corners Unknown, episode 8. On this episode, we've got a handful of interesting genres and albums to discuss. We've got some dark, ambient, martial, industrial flavored music, some melodic hardcore, as well as some lo-fi and chaotic black metal. So we've got Nachtstücke by HIEMIS, Fatigue by From Harbour, and The Gods Themselves by Microcosmys and Torture Des Ténèbres. So apologies in advance for botching some of the pronunciations of some of these names. Some of the song titles are going to be a bit difficult to articulate very well.
From corners of guys that can't pronounce things right.
Right.
Episode 8.
Right. We're getting better, we promise. It's as we continue to go into all these different countries and talk about music, we're slowly kind of piecing together better ways to pronounce. And I even spoke with Alexander Donat of Blackjack Illuminous Records, who's based in Germany. He's German, and he helped me try to pronounce some of the titles on one of these records, and I did my best to prepare, but I still feel like it's gonna be a bit of a struggle for us. But anyway, so where do you want to start? This one, man. Which album do you want to start with?
We could start with the Nachtstücke by
Nachtstücke. Okay. Yeah, HIEMIS. Okay, yeah. Let's go ahead and start with that record. So, HIEMIS is this. So it's so HIEMIS released their album Nachtstücke under Gradual Hate Records. This album came out just about a couple months ago, February of 2018, and Gradual Hate Records is a record label based in Valencia, Spain, and per their Bandcamp page, they focus on music in the realms of dark wave, neoclassical, medieval, dark folk, dark ambient, and industrial music. So they cover quite a large expanse of sounds. And this album is the first quote-unquote sound work by Juan Carlos Toledo, and I believe he has a project named Silent Love of Death, and he also has a release on Gradual Hate Record, and that I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that.
No, I didn't even know that. That's cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I listened to that, and that it's definitely different from this record, Nachtstücke. It is more, it definitely has ambient flavor and undertones, but it's more spoken word. And I found that to be interesting. I didn't listen to too much of it just so we could, I could kind of have my mind around this album and not, let it get contaminated or like crossbreed it with his other project. But yeah, so this album is kind of a dark, ambient, neoclassical, martial industrial, which is still kind of a foreign genre to me, but apparently it's kind of an offshoot of industrial, which makes use of dark ambient, and it's more like, I mean, people could probably correct me on this, but it gives me the impression that it's a genre that has more dark ambient flavors, more ambience, not beat driven like, some industrial stuff you may listen to. It's not as caustic, obviously. But yeah, and the album title Nachtstücke roughly translates to tracks of the night or night tracks. So yeah, and I was sent this record. So I would not have discovered this had I not been had the artist not sent it to me. So what'd you think about this one?
I mean, it's definitely the first of its type that I've ever really listened to before.
Right.
It was cool.
Right.
But I like the concept of the whole thing. How it's The whole album's based off the writings of the author E.T.A. Hoffmann.
Oh, is that so? I didn't even put that together.
Yeah,
Huh.
Ernst Theodor Amadeus Hoffmann, who lived from 1776 to 1822. But he has like a, I guess he just has a collection of short stories that he wrote of just strange, I don't know, strange stuff. Like the artist gives the description of there's a parallel world to which we all live, and it's made up of chance, intuitions, fears, and mysteries. Hoffman explored in everyday life the hidden reality that can be guessed in dreams, visions, ghosts, funeral stories, scientific machinations, in short, a world full of strange and mysterious forces which are able to play with the life and illusions of us all.
Huh. Interesting. Okay.
But I actually tried to read some of the stories, but they're all in German.
Oh, you couldn't find, there were like no English translations to your knowledge?
Yeah, it was using like the automatic, translation on my computer. So like some of the stories are really hard to follow, and characters' names are all mixed up, but there's some interesting stuff in there.
Is it kind of like weird, like dream-like sequences, or just kind of like, did you get like any sort of impressions on like was it just kind of like this surrealist sort of these like music?
There were like more surrealist, like weird tales.
Interesting.
Of like
okay,
on like royalty people, and it was strange.
Okay.
Like I only read a couple of the stories. Kind of.
Okay, yeah, see...
It's the synopsis, at least.
Yeah, and I guess I somehow didn't put that together, but I should have been able to put that together, because some of the track titles, like, they have, like, Cyprian's Ergelung, or however you pronounce that correctly, Cyprian's story, and that looked like that was some, he was some sort of a bishop of Carthage, or something like that, and I should have been able to put... something like together about
each
that,
track title actually translates to like one of his writings, actually.
Interesting. Okay.
So I think they're supposed to kind of make that feel, which I didn't know at first. I listened to it a couple times and made up all my own stories in my head, and then I kind of put it all together. I'm like, I wonder what these are supposed to be about.
No, that's very interesting. That's good to know, though. I actually was not aware that that's the case, but now that I know that, it makes a lot more sense, because this is a very, listening to this front to back, it's quite a thematic, it's very, it comes off very cinematic, but at the same time, each track seems to retain its own individuality, and it doesn't necessarily, I wouldn't say the tracks like flow into one another. It's not like one gigantic overarching piece. Each song seems to kind of, as you're describing, kind of tells its own story.
Yeah.
But sonically speaking, though, what'd you think of this? On your first impressions of this, and just overall, what'd you think of this?
I mean, I loved the combination of the drone and then the string instruments and all that stuff. That was really cool.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely.
I could listen to that over and over again. This is going to be on my weekly repeat for sure.
Right. Yeah, so this album is about an hour long. And it's 8 tracks in length. And the first track, the opener, Der Magnetisor, or the Magnetizer, it's kind of this really nice, slow, gargantuan composition with these undulating strings that kind of just float out from the song, and they're just a lot of really neat, slow-moving neoclassical string sections throughout.
On that song specifically, it kind of reminded me of the music in Blade Runner, both the old and new one.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I haven't seen the new Blade Runner, so I couldn't speak to that. But
yeah, it had this, the drone mixed with this kind of like deep, like reverbs and clattering noises.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, I kept envisioning like giant monolithic structures and weird kind of ancient but futuristic things.
Sure.
Set a very mysterious landscape for sure.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of cool about this whole album. How it has these neoclassical elements, and it's obviously rooted in quite old history or like antiquated history, but it melds in these modern day textures, right? Like it has like mechanical chirps and whirs and just like these weird things that you don't think would fit, but the artist like suppresses them pretty deep into the background. And on the first few listens, I seldom picked up on all the weird stuff, and then as I kind of like really focused, you could hear these really strange bits kind of like emerging from the like the gigantic undulating drones and such. But yeah, just like a lot of, especially in like the opening track, it's a little, I think it's pretty subtle. A lot of those things, it's kind of like you get like those like little mechanical, I don't know if they're like bleeps and bloops per se, but kind of like weird, just kind of like these tiny little grating sounds that come through.
That's my exact experience with it too.
Yeah,
Took a couple listens. Then the next track, which the Die Jesuit Kirche in G, which I guess translates to the Jesuit Church in G.
Yeah, that's right.
That was actually the story I read the most about.
Oh, interesting.
But it's weird because like the translation referred to everybody as like the traveling enthusiast, the enthusiast professor. I'm like, are these different people or what? But it's weird. It's like about somebody that gets off a train and is in like goes to this, I don't know, this ancient church, and there's an artist painting some, I don't know, religious painting in the church. And like he helps make scaffolding or something, and then later on he like researches the guy and finds out that he murdered his wife and children maybe, and then he like confronts the guy, and I don't know, it was really weird. Like I'm like because it's totally different from what I was picturing in my mind, but just listening to music before the stories.
Right, yeah, because in general, I would say the sounds on this album are, well, I don't know if, I was going to say warm, but they're not really that warm, but they're definitely, like, very engrossing, and I don't really get any, like, pangs of terror while listening to this, or, like, kind of, like, creepy vibes from it, per se.
There's a couple, but...
You know?
Overall,
there are a couple, yeah.
It doesn't really give that feel.
Yeah, but on that song, the Jesuit Church in G, I like that one because it's, you get like the slow bows of strings, and then almost like kind of these choir-like vocals are kind of just like that nice.
It has that like those male deep kind of chants going on.
Yeah, and they like slowly shift their pitch a little bit, and it just kind of. It just like builds in density so well, and it takes so long to build it too. Like the kind of like the strings come in, and it kind of goes and like swells. Yeah,
it's
for
still like building into like all the instruments and layers, like up to like 7 minutes in. I was just like, what? There's more?
Right. Yeah. And that's what's so. And I think that is a real salient note to take away from this record is like each song, some are shorter, but a handful of them are quite long, and they just get denser and denser as you listen to them, and it gets more engrossing. And on the Jesuit Church in G, just kind of you get like these weird little like rattles of cymbals that shimmer in, and it just kind of like it's a really weird collage of sounds. And then you get some weird mechanical noises that kind of bubble up deep in the background, and they're like these odd ricochets of like metallic clangs, and it's
so funny. Like my notes are so similar to all the things you're saying. Like word for word.
Oh, really?
Like the shimmering cymbals and the metallic clangs. That's great.
Yeah. No, it's a very fascinating listen. And on first listen, I was thinking of it more as just like, oh, this is like neoclassical, but like neoclassical ambient, kind of in the vein of like maybe a little less on the nose than say like Flowers for Body Snatchers. How Duncan, he uses like a bunch of like piano melodies and string string movements, and in this one, it's just a lot slower. It like just builds. But yeah, were there any tracks in particular? I mean, I have notes for each track, but I don't want to. I mean, we could go through each one, but that may take it may take a little bit.
Long.
Right. But were there certain moments or tracks that really struck you or kind of grabbed you the hardest?
I would have to say that track 6 and 7, Die Automata, the Automata, and then Der Sandman, the Sandman were like my favorite tracks. But in the track 6, sounds like there's this weird, almost xylophone type piano instrument going on at the beginning. Yeah, and then these deep bass beats, which kind of reminded me of traditional industrial music.
Yeah, like the dark, dreary, pulsating, and that was like one of the creepier moments where I was kind of like unnerved for a moment. I'm like, oh, what the hell? And it stands out relative to all other tracks. Like this one is definitely the more, I don't think experimental is the right word, but it definitely has the most variation within its structure. I would say.
I would say so too. And then there's almost this rubber banding, strings being plucked. And
kind of like the little string scurries or whatever. Yeah.
And then they also bring back in some piano and kind of male humming sounds again.
Right. Yeah, the piano melody, there's like this really awesome piano melody. So it kind of goes from this brooding, dark, dreary tone, and then a little over halfway this piano melody kind of comes in, and it's like this beautifully compelling thing, and then there's this compelling sound, and then you get these, and then I got like these strange twinkles of, almost like chimes or something. I can never describe what sound, like how they derive their sounds.
Yeah. I noticed that too.
But yeah, you get like strange twinkles of chimes pouring in with like these swells of drones, these humming drones. And it's and kind of just recapping that it's one of the more diverse songs. It kind of steps through more it steps through like more genres and textures and sounds, but it doesn't seem to build as deeply as some of the other tracks. So it's kind of like a nice way to mix up the pace, because some of the songs preceding it take a long time to build, but this one is a little more it's a little more succinct and impactful on just listening to it. It definitely stands out. And what'd you like about the Der Sandman song?
There's like the others, there's many layers of drone and ambient noises going on. And then around 2 minutes in, there's beautiful orchestral music comes in. Right. And it kind of washes away those initial strange sounds. They're still there, but the orchestral stuff takes over. And I don't know, dude, it's just beautiful and relaxing.
Yeah.
And then it's such a good blend of sound. And in a way, I don't know how familiar you were with the Courage Cowardly Dog on Cartoon Network back in the day.
Oh yeah, that show scared the
dude. They had such weird music in that, but a lot of the music in this kind of reminds me of that show.
Oh, interesting.
It's the weird vibe, because they would have like these pieces of music that were just really strange, but they had orchestral stuff going on, and
interesting.
And he would encounter these strange creatures and whatnot. But the song really reminded me of that.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. Yeah, and I think on another song, just to kind of talk a bit more about some of the stuff, I really also like the Das Ude House, the Barren House, kind of there's kind of like some creepy, spacious rings pouring from it, and they're you kind of get these corrosive static, just kind of like these bits of static ringing out, and the drones almost sound like these howls of wind lapping up against like the wooden boards of a house of, you know, or like a derelict home or something of that sort. And there are a lot of interesting uses of like metal clangs and what sounds like maybe like old wind chimes potentially rattling in the wind. It's really hard to say exactly what, you know, if they're field recordings, what have you. Yeah,
especially
but that track
towards the end, it gets weird. I don't know if you noticed, like, there's a lot of weird scratching noises, and they're almost warped in a way too. And at the very end, the drone kind of drops out, and you can only hear those really weird noises.
Yeah, and that was the other bit I was gonna say. Yeah, it kind of around the, you know, deeper into the track near its end. Yeah, like it kind of becomes a little spookier, a little more barren. You know, kind of fits the title of the track, and it kind of lets these chilling textures kind of just like ring out in this minimalist landscape.
It's funny because, like, in the actual story by E.T.A. Hoffman, it's all about like barons and baronesses and like archdukes and all that type of stuff. And I don't know, it's a weird story. It is a barren house, but there's a lot of strange stuff going on.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's good that you note the these details, because I didn't put as I was kind of typing in all these titles into like Google Translate to figure it out. Like I definitely got some sense of stories being told, but I didn't realize it was authored. These are based around you know, pre-existing works, and now that I know that, it makes it more compelling. And hopefully there exists some English translation of these stories, because I don't trust Google Translate all that much.
Not either.
So
stories are definitely worth reading, I would say, though. I had
interesting
trouble reading them because I don't really know the time frame that much in that part of the world.
Right.
Because the guy's writing stories like based around the time he's alive, you know, 1700s, early 1800s.
Sure.
And like the Neapolitan days and all that stuff, and it was hard to follow, but it seemed very interesting.
But no, definitely. And this, I would, you know, that this album is quite an interesting listen. It's very engrossing, and if you like more minimalist soundscapes, I think this would fit. You know, anybody that likes kind of just like minimalist soundscapes and just like dense but slowly unfurling soundscapes, I think that you'd really enjoy this, especially if you like neoclassical stuff. The strings and like the piano is used, I would say it's used quite sparingly, so when it kind of pops in, it really makes an impact as well. But overall, it's a pretty immersive listen. Right. Would you recommend folks check this one out? Or would you recommend this to, you know, a specific audience or group of people?
Well, definitely people that appreciate the neoclassical stuff and ambient, like dark ambient.
Right.
It was a good mix. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. I would sincerely recommend this one to folks. And I actually used this one. I played this a couple times, like right before I fell asleep as well, and it definitely like puts you in a really nice trance while listening to it as well. It kind of, you know, for as strange as some of the industrial-esque textures can be, it doesn't, you know, if you pay attention to it, it could sound a little strange, but the way they're just kind of enveloped in these drones, it makes it really compelling, and it doesn't feel as minimalist. I don't know how to describe it very well. It's a very interesting sound, and I don't think I've ever come across something quite like this. It's just very well produced and very calculated, obviously, because these are related to specific stories. All right, so which one do you want to talk about? Which album do you want to talk about next, man?
Let's do Fatigue by From Harbour.
Okay. Yeah, so do you have some background on these guys?
Yeah, From Harbour are from Flensburg, Germany. Mm-hmm. Which made me think, like, why are they calling themselves From Harbour? Because being from a a bay myself in California, there's a lot of hardcore bands I've noticed do the same thing, where it's some
interesting
thing related to the ocean or whatever. But
sure,
so I looked up where Flensburg, Germany is, and it sits in this harbor or fjord, the Flensburg Fjord, and the Baltic Sea.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Which is super close to the Denmark-Germany border, which I found interesting.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, back.
So there's a little bit of a local tie to where their name is derived from. Maybe.
Yeah, I would assume.
It sounds
so.
like. That sounds. Yeah, that's neat. Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. But anyways, back to the music.
Right.
Their album Fatigue, which I believe is their first release, because I could not find anything else. At least their first full release.
This, at least per their Bandcamp page, this is the first full release they have on their Bandcamp page. So I think we're safe in saying this is their first release based on that, but they can correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah, definitely. But Fatigue came out on March 16th, 2018.
Okay.
And they're a hardcore band with some, metal and punk vibes.
Right.
I believe their label is independent.
Yeah, yep. They self-released.
And although they're a German hardcore band, their vocals are in English.
Yep. Yeah, and these guys are comprised. They're a 5-piece. They have 2 guitarists, a bassist, a drummer, and a vocalist. And yeah, they play a pretty cool blend of music. I was gonna ask before we get too deep into this, how'd you come across these guys? Like, what was it about them that made you want to talk about them? Because I know you put this one on the list for us to discuss. How did you find them? Was it just through the Bandcamp searches?
Yeah, it was another seeking of the band through Bandcamp.
Right, kind of going through the dregs or going through the underbelly of it.
And I'm like, oh,
right.
These guys sound well produced. I dig their stuff. It's It's, there's nothing too special, I'd say. Like, I enjoy the music.
Yes.
But I just liked it. It was quick, solid album overall.
Right,
nice hardcore album.
Yeah. So before we get too deep into the music real quick, I tried to figure out, this band seems to have been around for quite some time, but I kind of went through their Facebook, kind of trolled through it and looked at their posts, and it one of their first posts kind of started back in like November of 2013. So it seems like they've been around for a while, but they just put out their first LP, which I just find a little interesting that it's taken them so long, and I'm sure that there are plenty of reasons why it took them so long to be able to get their first LP out, just doing the independent DIY stuff. But yeah, these guys have been around for a while. And yeah, this is a real succinct listen. It's about 30 minutes over 8 tracks, 32 minutes-ish. And they play like it's like melodic. It's like melodic hardcore with bits of black metal and a decent bit of like post-metal atmosphere,
definitely.
Kind of like airy and dreamlike, and
especially during like the intros and outros of the songs.
Yeah, and each song is, or maybe not all, but what I appreciate on this album, and I appreciate this in general on a handful of records that I come across, is when bands kind of suture together their songs with ambience, or they kind of make it flow together, like we talked about Shallow Graves on the last episode. And, they kind of pulled together on this one. It's a little, sometimes there are instruments, but usually I noticed there were like little bits, like 10 or 5 seconds of ambience that kind of like put the songs together. I'm like, yeah, there's a little bit, I don't know, I just kind of appreciate
it's definitely pretty cool. It makes that whole album seem very complete.
Yes, yeah. So what was it about them that compelled you? Like, what would you like about them the most, initial listen?
Definitely the melodic guitars. That's always my biggest weakness when it comes to this type of music.
Sure.
Even if it's not even that, like, complex or anything, I just really love melodic guitars.
Right. Yeah. No, I get you. I get you on that. What songs specifically? What was the song that you listened to first that kind of got you hooked on it or got you interested?
It was Walls. They actually had a music video for it too. Where
Oh shit! I did totally miss that. Okay.
yeah, pretty much. It's just the band's in a white room playing their instruments, and it's weird because
okay.
there's like a person and like an empty room, and there's like a crappy mattress on the floor, and then they're looking at like Polaroid photos on the walls. I couldn't really make out what the photos were. Like it was like of them and some weird stuff. And at one point, it shows the person, but like their face is overlaid with them being assaulted almost. And I'm assuming with the lyrics seem to be about somebody that has their emotions walled out, like they aren't really communicating with anybody. Maybe they're hiding this assault that happened to them, and it's really affecting them, but they're afraid to really speak out about it.
Yeah, and that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty relevant for this. Where we're at, like just in today's day and age, right?
That seemed to be the theme over all of the lyrics. There's a lot of like dealing with like issues in our society and human emotions, which is always
very
cool.
poignant. I appreciate that as well, and I found that to be quite compelling. So when I first listened to these guys, I was a little. I do like hardcore. I've started to stray away from it a little bit. Just because, I don't know, my taste in music just keeps going deeper and deeper into weirder places.
Stranger.
Right, but when I first listened to this, I liked a lot of the elements. I'm not a huge fan of like chuggy stuff, like when riffs are kind of more chugs and they're not as... Yeah, and it's kind of like breakdowny, like that stuff I've grown pretty tired of that in general. And when I first listened to them, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't really dig this. But then when I started reading the lyrics in tandem with the instrument, the lyrics and the instruments, the chugginess it seemed to kind of, I wouldn't say match the lyrics, but it definitely made me appreciate what they're doing more, and the chugginess didn't bother me as much because I liked the lyrics and I thought that they were very well thought out and well written. And they're not like just what you would expect from a bunch of other bands. Like it's not, I don't know, it has a lot of interesting points.
Definitely, and it doesn't come off as whiny. Like there's always like there's always that like fear that might happen when you're like talking about stuff like this, but like no, he delivers it great.
Yes.
What is his name? Morton, the vocalist.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, definitely. What specific track would you like to talk about, or which tracks would you want to talk about?
I enjoyed the first track, Departure, quite a bit. It kind of starts off with a strange ambient build up.
Yep.
And like it almost sounds like
one of my favorite parts.
Very faint crows.
Yeah.
But and then some mellow guitar melody comes in, and then all the other instruments, start to join in. And I think the song is about death. I couldn't really make out the lyrics too much on this one, what they meant, but I dig it. And then one thing I noticed, this band likes to do a lot of those like harmonizing screams and chants for the choruses, which at times I kind of get burnt out on, but if I'm in the right mood, I totally dig that kind of stuff.
See, and what's interesting about that point you say is so that what I find funny about that is you say you got a little burnt out on that, and what I found is when I listened to just the lead vocalist on his own, his vocal style doesn't really change, and I started I didn't find it grating, but I found it a bit how do I say this without it sounding really harsh? I kind of just got it just felt a little tedious just listening to it, but I found the kind of like the gang vocals to make it more compelling. You know what I mean?
Like a whole another element to it. Keep it
right. But I cannot. Yeah, but I could understand from the other perspective because there are quite a few moments where it's kind of like a bunch of people are shouting the same phrase, or they're kind of pinging back and forth between the words that they've written for these tracks.
But I feel like it's kind of part of hardcore. You really get everybody. I can just picture them at a live show and the whole crowd's, And the song Submerge, for instance, the chorus that they kept saying is, you sink, you swim, you live, you drown. I could totally see like a whole crowd of people, shouting that.
Right. Yeah, that is, I dig that track I dug that track quite a bit. Just the super chunky guitar as well, just kind of the way it opens, and it just kind of has like, it's really like, it kind of has this brittle but really like heavy, like it's I don't know if brittle may not be the best word, but it just kind of has like this caustic chunkiness to the guitars, like it has like a nice tone, and I like that track specifically because they do like there's a nice flow between the styles. They kind of go from breakdowny, like chuggy riffs, and then they kind of have like this post black metal tremolo picked riff, and it kind of has like this shimmering aura to it, and then they kind of go back into this, the crushing hardcore stuff. Like, they kind of transition between the sounds seamlessly, and that makes it really compelling as well.
In a way, you could even say that it kind of, works with the whole vibe of the lyrics and feel of the album.
Right,
you're dealing with anxiety and whatever in life.
Right.
And then the chugginess comes in. It's just you're angry and like, screw this.
Right. But dude, there's like a riff like in the middle of that track that I was just like fucking, I was just like, yeah, this is fucking awesome. There was like, and that's a thing, when I listen to hardcore, I generally am I've grown a little tired of the breakdowny, chuggy kind of beat down sounding stuff. But when there was the one riff in the middle of Submerged, and it was just like such a slick riff, and it's just like, yeah, you just want to like go crush skulls when you listen to that. I don't know how you feel.
Oh yeah, I know
about
exactly
that.
what you're talking about. I dig that.
Right. But yeah, there's a nice synergy, and I also sincerely appreciate, and I do like kind of the post influences. They make really nice use of kind of these beautiful kind of crescendo-y guitar work, and it kind of gives it like this depressing but uplifting vibe, and it kind of pairs well with the lyrics, kind of like the depressing or some of like the angry lyrics, and it, just the way that it goes back and forth. And there's some nice interplay between the guitars too. Like sometimes the guitar, I think it's, rhythm and lead or whomever, and, there's some nice moments where it sounds like if you were to listen to it, like, you in your headphones, like one side is kind of doing like the more uplifting stuff, and then the other side is doing kind of like the more slimy, hardcore, undercurrent, chuggy stuff, and they kind of play off of each other real nicely.
That stuff is pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, but is there a song specifically that you like on this one, or other?
My favorite song definitely was Submerge. We talked quite a bit about that one, but
yes, yeah, that one's sick.
I really dug. Let's see. I liked Lights, although the content of that one was really dark. The final track 8.
Yeah, and that's a super tense one too. Like that one just like builds tension for a while, and it just kind of like, it's kind of it's like white knuckle. Like it kind of makes you tense up, and it takes a couple minutes to kind of release the pressure.
It was definitely the longest instrumental build-up I noticed.
Right.
In the beginning, and then yeah, they're super pessimistic lyrics in that one.
Yes.
Right. I don't remember them specifically, but like it was like about not wanting to see the world anymore. And
yeah, no, I have the lyrics right here in front of me, and I close my eyes and count to 3 and hope that that all will disappear when all is said and done. This whole thing won't mean shit. by this time next year I'll make everything disappear. Friends, family, and whoever crossed my way throughout the years. By this time next year I'll make all of this disappear.
That's pretty depressing.
So yeah.
But I
it
like
is.
the sound.
It really is. Yes. But yeah, there's a really cool riff in that song too. Like when it does release, there, it kind of builds and builds. Like the drums are just kind of slamming, and like the guitars are just kind of, like they just keep getting, they just keep playing kind of the same notes, and it just builds up this tension, and then they release, or they kind of crack open, and then there's this hair-raising frenetic riff that pops out until the song closes off, and it kind of washes out into some ambience kind of to close it out nicely. But I would say I also, in addition to Submerge, track 6, Wolves.
Oh, Wolves is pretty good.
Yeah, there's a really cool, there's some real slick riffs in there, and the transitions are really nice, how it kind of goes from more somber tones to uplifting melodic hardcore post-metal-y vibes. Yeah, there's a lot of really neat genre interplay here, and they make it work seamlessly. And when, like I've said, with some of the hardcore stuff, though I have grown tired of it in general, all the post and melodic elements they infuse into the sound makes it a very engaging listen.
It's not just overwhelming chugs. It just all kind of
yeah, and and like when the chugs, they don't, for some reason they just don't hit me as they used to. But but there are certain moments in songs, and I think even in Homeless, the track 5, they have a pretty awesome crunchy riff in there as well. They have like a centerpiece riff that they kind of come back to a few times throughout the song, and when they're not just chugging and they're like playing like this really cool little riff, that's when I engaged with it the most. That's when it really got me into the music.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm glad you found these guys, and I'm hoping that they put out more music, and I hope it doesn't take another 5 years or however long to get their, to get stuff out.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe this is it. Maybe they just got on their tracks right now, and now they're just gonna start taking the world by storm.
Right. Yeah. No, it should be interesting to see where these guys go. But would you recommend this to folks?
Yeah,
or
I mean, if you're a hardcore fan that likes some traditional hardcore and very melodic stuff, I would say it's quick, it's catchy. The lyrics are good, instruments are good. Tackles a lot of human emotions and societal issues like homelessness and the kind of duality of religion and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I also noticed in a couple of the songs, just to make another point, and I don't know if this was me just reading too much into it, but the first couple songs they use a lot of like lyrical themes that tie to oceans and waves and stuff like that, and I was like, I wonder if that kind of relates to the band name and all that kind of stuff.
So. Definitely.
Right, yeah, like on Departure and obviously Submerge, like Submerge underwater, what have you. But yeah, there are a couple songs that the lyrics are quite sharp. So if you like, if you're into that kind of stuff, I think that there's a lot to like here, and it's a succinct listen too. So. Yep. Okay, and that leaves us with the last album, The Gods Themselves, by Microcosmys and La Torture Des Ténèbres. What do you? Yeah, so I was I learned of this. So this is a split, 5 songs, and the first 3 songs are from a Ukrainian duo from Lviv, Ukraine. I believe that's the capital city, or no, I think that's Kyiv. we've talked about another band from Louisville that was Non-Sun, right?
Yep, that was Non-Sun.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But this is a split. And Microcosmys, this is technically their second release, at least per their Bandcamp. They dropped their first release back in June of 2017. And this record, do you have the date for when this came out?
The Gods Themselves came out November 21st, 2017.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it came out last year. Okay, that's good. Okay. I should have put two and two together. But yeah, this is a really interesting split. Microcosmys is more of like a lo-fi black metal outfit, and La Torture Des Ténèbres, they're a crazy band. I was like just floored when I first listened to them, and they're kind of like this raw, atmospheric, chaotic black metal outfit based out of Ottawa, Canada. And the two tracks from La Torture, they are tracks that already exist on another release of theirs from 2016 titled Arcadian Nights.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Right. So those songs, yeah. So if you want to listen to the full split, it's on YouTube under the atmospheric black metal page. It's kind of all crammed together, all 5 songs. If you want to listen to La Torture Des Ténèbres, you have to kind of go do some Bandcamp sleuthing, but we'll pop a link for the video or the Bandcamp so you folks can find it if you want to go download those songs as well. But those are on a separate album. But and this album, well, no, I should let you talk about that because I know you found that quite interesting too, right? Just kind of the concept of it.
Concept. Well, first off, I like how Microcosmys identifies themselves as space black metal. That's something I never would have paired together, but it totally works.
No, it does. It does. Yeah.
But anyways, the whole concept is about the science fiction novel by Isaac Asimov. How do you say
Asimov? Yeah, yeah. I think he's a Russian.
Okay.
Russian.
That's definitely a Russian
novelist.
But anyways, his novel that came out in 1972, The Gods Themselves. Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, the novel's about these aliens from a parallel universe who their energy and stuff burns out faster than ours. So they somehow found a way to get to our universe and start, taking our energy away from our suns and galaxy and whatnot.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Huh.
Which I was like, what?
Okay.
And then I found out that, well, first off, Microcosmys, half of the album, is all about the second part of the novel, I guess.
Oh,
and each track is named after the 3 main characters in that
oh, yeah. And their name is Odin, Dwa, and Trit, or Trite. I can't. Yeah, I'm failing here. But yeah, anyway.
And then I guess they represent the 3 different types of sexes in their universe.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I did not read into that.
Yeah,
okay.
Something about fluid and I don't know, hard forms and something. I don't know. And if there's the 3 of them create what they call a triad. And if they meld together in a certain way, they produce offspring. I don't know. It was really trippy. I feel like you would need to read the book to really understand it, but
yeah, it sounds like you need to be pretty baked or something to really get yourselves immersed in that. Jesus, that sounds awesome though. That sounds so cool. Right? I did not realize there was that much depth to that. I did not realize it was that. I mean, that's fucking awesome. That's really neat.
Crazy. Yeah. I definitely heard the title of the book before, but I never really looked into it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, I was interested to see what you thought of this because I know you're not. I don't think you're too big on black metal. And when I first listened to this, I kind of got this shit-eating grin on my face because I'm like, oh, this is so lo-fi, and I'm like, Connor's gonna hate this. Okay, well, and I was like, I'm gonna put this on here because I want to see how you're gonna react because I knew Well, I didn't know. I was like, maybe you'd like it, but I'm interested to hear what you had to say about both artists.
First off, the part that bugs me the most in lo-fi black metal is the vocals. And thankfully there isn't any vocals.
That is true. That is true.
But
it's all instrumental.
Anyways, yeah, at least with the first half, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
Good. Okay. No, that's good to hear.
Yeah,
that's
the
really
lo-fi part didn't bug me at all. Like, it was really cool. I loved
that's awesome.
how, grainy and kind of atmospheric it kind of created that sound created. And
right, yeah.
And I just love how it was, there's some catchy black metal riffs and with these weird, strange sci-fi electronic sounding stuff going on.
Yeah, that was the one bit when I first listened to it, I was like, I listened to it and I noticed this when I listened to the records on Bandcamp versus YouTube. I noticed on YouTube the sound overall, it's kind of lower. It doesn't sound as it just sounds a little more muddled. And when I listened to it on Bandcamp, it was like a little louder, and I could kind of make out the instruments a bit better. Maybe I'm deluded.
I only listened to this half on Bandcamp. I never listened to this part on YouTube. So.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. But they, for being just a 2-piece, I'm pretty surprised that on first listen I was kind of like, I was kind of indifferent to how this sounded. But as I continued to mull over these 3 songs, I found like the lo-fi aspect of this to be quite compelling, to the extent that it, like, lyrics or not, I mean, this doesn't have lyrics, but I thought the instruments, the way that they were mixed, you could hear, you could like hear the instruments so well, and you're like, man, these guys know how to play their instruments. Like, it comes through really well. And when you listen to black metal, some of it just sounds like a can of smashed assholes, as you would say, right?
Yes.
And it's just like,
that's the first appearance of can of smashed assholes.
Right. But it's like, you listen to some stuff and it comes through and it just sounds like this grating wall of hissing and frog croaking vocals or what have you, and it's just kind of, it's off-putting sometimes. And on this, it's like the drums, you can hear all, like, I guess the real issue is here, the instruments don't have a lot of punch per se, because the production is lo-fi, so you don't feel kick drum of the drum kit hitting you in the chest, but you can hear the double bass going, you can hear and it's like, it's clean, like you can hear every instrument, and the riffs are really nice. And then like, I was just like, holy shit, these guys know what they're like, they know how to play this stuff, and it's mixed. It took me a few listens to really appreciate it, but once I listened to it, I'm like, man, this is some solid shit. And especially with the weird atmosphere, I don't know how the hell they make those atmospheric noises,
have no idea.
but it's like, but yeah, like each song is just slathered with these really like twinkly, weird, spacious, ambient sounds.
They definitely nailed the space kind of alien feel.
Yeah, and it works really well, and maybe that's why they go with that approach. I'm hoping to speak with them in an interview or something soon, just to learn more about how they got this sound, because it's really interesting. But would you, like, what about it stood out to you? Like, what'd you like about it?
Definitely the weird spacey atmospheric sounds and whatnot.
Yeah.
Especially the weird twinkling sounds and the second track.
Yeah.
I was like, what is that? But it just works so well with those like guitars and the double bass and.
Yep.
It's like muddled but very melodic too.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I like that track. At first, when I listened to it, the way it opens, it kind of has like this cavernous tone to it. And then, the opening riff kind of like slows down, and there's that weird twinkling, and the riff is kind of like going with the twinkling, like super slow. And at first I was like, it felt a little jarring, and I was like, oh, this is weird. And then as it kind of lurches out from that moment, it just kind of goes into this. Yeah, it's an excellent song, and
I can't help but picture like these strange, like kind of metalhead extraterrestrial creatures just headbanging to this.
Right.
I have this weird image of that, like kind of like a strange 80s heavy metal magazine look.
Yeah, but no, definitely.
Yeah, dude, this
but
stuff
yeah,
is face
man,
melting.
yeah, no, it's great, and like the drumming is super tight, you know, and it goes from just like traditional, like super fast double kick blast beat black metal, you know, like what you would expect, and then just the pitch shifts just in the riffs. You know, like there are some really cool thrashy moments as well, kind of breaks out of that mold for a second, and it kind of has these neat thrash metal-y-esque bits in it. Some super catchy moments too, which is on the first listen I didn't even catch it really, and then I listened to it again. I'm like, geez, there's some really nice moments on here.
It's funny. I found myself like turning the volume up more and more and more as I got more into it.
Yeah, and that's I guess that could be the only thing to really note for folks who listen to this. It is. I don't know if it's mixed or mastered. I'm not well versed in my language with that, and I need to improve it. But it's definitely like lower when you listen to it. It sounds very quiet, so I highly recommend you kind of crank it up to get a bit more punch from it. I mean, I guess that's like one of the only real kind of complaints I have. You know, when I listen to it, it just kind of it just sounds a little quiet.
It's like somebody dropped the decibels like by like
end
of 20.
Right, but that could be what they're going for. But since they're still a relatively fresh band, you know, they're probably kind of feeling out their sound still and trying to figure out the right balance to strike, because I could see why they would keep the instruments a bit lower, because the atmospherics, that's definitely one of my favorite aspects of this. Just the weird atmosphere, just all the weird ambience that they kind of engulf their instruments in. It's very strange, very just very sci-fi atmospheric, and I don't think I've come across a black metal outfit that sounds this sounds like this. I don't think.
Right.
But yeah, no, I sincerely enjoy this, and yeah, the drumming is super good. I mean, it's very well played, and yeah, just like it's just like riff central, just a lot of cool moments and just like a lot of shifts, and yeah, just very well composed. But how about the other half?
The second half is like the La Torture Des Ténèbres part.
Like Ténèbres. Right. What'd you think of that?
I definitely was just like, oh, this is a Ryan artist for sure. But I couldn't find much info on them. Like, is it one person that goes by?
I tried to
JK. I don't know.
I've been trying to figure that out, and so what's interesting about this band, so they're from Ottawa. One person, I don't know, if you go to this band's Bandcamp page, they have a few links to YouTube videos, and it's linked to somebody by the name of Jessica Kinney.
Oh, that's what the JK is.
Right, and she may be the sole person or the sole individual behind this project, but there's really not that much information. Like, I've seen press coverage of their album releases, but online there really isn't much on the band itself. It's kind of like just little pieces about, oh, here's a new track from this crazy black metal band. I'm like, okay, but I want to know who's behind this. Yeah. Yeah, and there's really not too much information, which kind of makes it a little more interesting.
Yeah, it's just mysterious, just like the music.
yeah, but why did you call this a ride? Like, what is that supposed to mean?
Okay, so you kind of have like the all the instruments in the background, but the dominant noise is just a wave of like reverbing, I don't know, grain and just drone and.
It's almost like harsh noise.
Yeah,
it's almost like a harsh noise. Yeah, it's like harsh, atmospheric black metal. Like, it just sounds like I don't know. It's just like this cacophony of just like static, and like you can't even tell if there are like drums going on half the
no
time.
idea.
It just sounds like this wall of just like shimmering. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's just a wall of noise. It's like
you
somebody
like it,
put
or-
a layer of the black metal, and then dropped another layer of just noise and cranked up the sound.
Right. Well, do you not like it, or what's your overall sentiment? What do you think of it?
I mean, I dig it for what it is. It's not something I would really seek.
Okay.
But
okay, that's fair.
I think it works with the whole split quite well. It's definitely different from the other half, but
yeah, definitely. And I think in that sense, that's why. So when I listened to this split, La Torture, this was the first time I've ever heard of this project. They have a handful of albums already out. They've been around since, I believe, they've been around since about like 2016 with the album Arcadian Nights, and I think I may have misspoke earlier. The tracks off this title, the tracks on this one, the two songs contributed by this band, they came off an album called Choirs of Emptiness, which came out May 2016. But this is the first time I've ever heard of this project, and I think for split purposes, like just kind of the beauty of it is you get 3 lo-fi black metal tracks from Microcosmys, and then you get these 2 insanely caustic, corrosive, atmospheric, raw black metal tracks, and it's like a really cool partition of sounds. So,
another thing I really liked was the whole like album artwork on La Torture's like other stuff too. Like the split's cool, but it reminds me kind of the whole feel of. Have you ever seen the 1920s film Metropolis?
No, I've not heard. I think I saw something about that recently. Is that a good film? I've not.
It's like one of the really big, like well done, kind of futuristic. It's really trippy. I mean, it was done in the 1920s.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I'm gonna have to watch that tonight.
It's like depicting the future, and like there's just strange designs, and the architecture is just crazy.
Maybe there is some influence there. I mean, I listened to some of La Torture's music prior, like some of the other albums, and they definitely like make use of sound samples that sound like they come from old films. So maybe there is some connection there.
I faintly remember the music being really strange in that like film too.
Interesting. Okay.
I would say it's worth checking out.
Yeah, definitely. But so staying on topic a bit, on just to kind of tie off some thoughts on this, so listening to this from La Torture, so basically the sound, it's really difficult to describe, but it's essentially just this super raw, harsh noise wall of black metal. It just, like Connor described, it kind of sounds like black metal with just like this thick layer of just like reverb and static just melded on top of it,
AKA
and then
Ryan music.
Yes, my music. Yes, anything that's weird and out there, I love it instantly. But what's awesome about this is the vocals are super submerged in the mix, and they kind of sound like these tortured whales, and they're kind of crying out. And I love that. And the lyrics are super interesting too. They almost like read like really depressing musings about humanity and how pointless it is to live life. It's really depressing, and though you can't really... You'll never be able to surmise the lyrics by listening to it. You have to read them. I find it very compelling, and what's neat about this is underneath this miasma of static and raw black metal, there are these really depressing guitar melodies that trickle out, and it generally, I would say that there's a really... I found it emotionally compelling and kind of overwhelming in parts. Just they're very, I don't know, they're very like raw riffs in here, and I don't know if you got that, but when I listened to it, there are certain moments that are just like super overwhelming for me emotionally that I liked, like just very like depressive sounds. But yeah, so on like the one track, Next Stop Virgo City, there's like a very heartfelt, almost depressing riff, but it's just buried so deep in this fabric of chaos that it's kind of hard to pick out. But if you just like sit there and just let it wash over you, I don't know. I find it extremely compelling, and a lot of people will probably just pass this off as like, oh, it's just noise. But there's a lot.
Oh yeah, there's definitely some hidden layers in there that are pretty cool.
Right, and it's a very unique style, and I'm glad that Microcosmys, even though that these two tracks from La Torture are not new tracks, I'm glad that Microcosmys came together to release this with them, because I think that the sounds pair very well together.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happens in the book for like the last part of it, but maybe it relates to it in a way, just with the sound and the
definitely
themes and the screams and despair.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, there seems to be, and I guess just to kind of harken back to your note about the gods themselves, kind of the concept of the album, like just looking at, like touching on some of the lyrics for "We Should Have Left It on the Country Station." Some of the lyrics, and I think it sounds like it kind of relates to the novel itself, because they say, sailing across the night sky past thousands of collapsing suns, I question the reason for our continued existence. What foul god placed us down here on this wretched planet to toll in endless agony, only to be left perpetually unfulfilled? Like that's just like a snippet of the lyrics of that song. And though you can't hear that, it sounds like it kind of ties back
definitely
to this. Yeah, and it's, when you read the lyrics and listen to the music, I think it elevates the music a lot. But, if you're not into harsh noise, or like, just like really caustic sounding cosmic despair almost, I don't know. If anybody likes to just jump into the deep end and get, cracked across the jaw with something really loud and caustic, I think that this is a pretty good split.
Oh yeah.
But overall, what'd you think of like the split on the whole?
On the whole, I mean, the whole thing is just so like unique and interesting that it's, even if you don't dig it, it's worth checking out.
Right.
And
definitely.
I've never like listened to something that's made me want to, go out and buy a book so much.
That's true. Yeah, I kind of want to read the novel now myself after kind of seeing how Microcosmys tied it back to these three aliens and all that. It makes it very it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But and just so I can confirm, like and then the La Torture songs, what did you think about the overall tones and textures of that stuff?
Well, I dig the whole like just caustic intensity of it.
Right.
I can't really see myself like wanting to listen to it too often, but
yeah, makes sense.
I can respect what it is.
For sure, definitely.
It's definitely got some cool stuff to it.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, I would highly recommend folks check this one out as well. I feel like we recommend a lot of stuff, but that's kind of the point of talking about these albums.
I don't think I could listen to something I don't like on repeat to talk about it.
That's
for an
true.
hour.
That's true. That is very true. But I sincerely, implore folks to go dig into this one. You can't buy or access the full split on Bandcamp, unfortunately, so you can go get Microcosmys's tracks on their respective Bandcamp, and then for La Tortures, you're going to have to go to their respective Bandcamp, or you just go listen to it on the YouTube channel, the Atmospheric Black Metal channel, and they have the full 30-minute-ish. I think it's about 30 minutes in length. It's actually a pretty succinct listen as well, which is nice. It's kind of like a nice mix of styles, and it's a pretty quick listen. So, yeah.
I would just like to dedicate this episode to Caleb Scofield, who tragically passed away last week on March 28th. I know Ryan, I appreciated all of his musical acts, such as Cave-In, Zozobra, and Old Gloom. He was an amazing vocalist and great bassist, and he definitely helped me branch off into stranger and more experimental types of heavier music. Rest easy. You were a very talented man. You've been listening to Voices from Corners Unknown, Episode 8. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this one. We had some pretty interesting stuff and would like some feedback. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.